So what's been good with the VWAP? Talk to me about some trades recently. So
All
what
right,
he's
cool.
saying, there's
I'm doing
algos
something
that
right.
are going to kick on and buy a lot of these indices and whatever asset
Yes,
is at New York VWAP. Yeah, that makes sense because in
exactly.
Brian's book, he talks about how the big guys are always saying, get me VWAP, get me VWAP. And they're tracking that
Mhm.
price very accurately.
He's like, and not too many traders make it to this 8 figures a year point. And then he goes, here's my story about how I made 8 figures in 1 week. And
Oh
just
my gosh.
everyone's like, oh shit. Well, I really like the opening range break here, on the 15-minute chart. I'm like, okay, like, how do we like amplify that? How do we make sure that we understand it more? That's your system, right? That's your edge. That's what you're building. Like, yeah, well, I don't know. I was thinking about this because I watched this, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, what makes sense to you? But it's just like a period of growth for me right now, more than
That's
anything,
good.
honestly. And so that's kind of all. It's kind of boring in that sense, but boring is good for me. I like it. I just want to get strong as fuck, make money, grow.
Says the guy that literally started the podcast with, I get deadlifted 675 pounds or 625 pounds. What's up, traders? Welcome back to the Day Trading Show. My name's Austin Silver. I'm your host. Today, I'm sitting down with the Strong Trader. Tanner and I are back for part 2. If you haven't heard part 1, I'll put a link to that down in the description. This one is super casual. We cover a lot of important topics. We talk about the FastTrackTrading collapse. We talk about his time at the Traders for a Cause event in Vegas that he went to. And we also do a deep dive into one of the bigger losing days he's ever had. And we talk about what he learned from it. We talk about VWAP and what strategy he's really using with the VWAP. So a lot is covered, but I think you guys are going to love this. So big shout out to Tanner for doing this. I want to let you guys know before we get started, you're going to see a little teaser of an upcoming seminar. It's a 2-day boot camp that we're hosting in Dallas. If you want more information on that, I've got links in the description. But that's enough out of me. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you're subscribed and now enjoy the podcast. Saves you a fuck ton of money, bro. This podcast wouldn't be possible without Top One Trader. If you're looking to get funded and trade CFDs, check out the link in the description. I've also got a discount code that's going to save you 40% on your next challenge, maybe a little bit more. The code is ASFX. Use the link, check it out, and good luck in getting funded. And thank you to Top One for sponsoring the episode. Yeah, bro, that's so funny. I love that shirt.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, it was, I don't know, just, you know how it is being a creative, kind of. It's like things come to your brain, and I was like, oh, this would be such a funny shirt to wear to Traders for a Cause. And I didn't even end up wearing it because I ended up forgetting it. I was like, damn it. But I've worn it in some of my videos, and some people are like, oh my God, I need that shirt. I need that shirt.
Dude, I think if we tell people to go DM you and say, like, go blow Tanner up, you might have to open up a merch business once this gets out.
Dude, people want my strong trading merch and stuff. And I made one run of like the shirts a long time ago, and a bunch of people, as I've been growing, I need to do it again. It's just like, it's just not on high on
It's
the
a good
priority
brand,
list.
bro, because people
Yeah.
can buy into the idea of like strong trader. Because like, how many of us want to be in the gym and be strong? Would you pull on deadlift the other day, bro? 500 fucking pounds, something like that?
675.
That's what I was gonna say, bro. Crazy. I saw that you like stumbled back. I'm like, that's literally 5 of me.
A
That's crazy, bro.
lot of practice, dude. A lot of
But
practice.
a
But
lot of
yeah.
practice, but also like that's what I'm saying. I think the brand strong trader, people can like you embody that really well. People will buy into that because you live it so well. You know what I mean? I got to give you credit too, bro. I think you do the most creative reels in our little space that we have going on. I think because you've got the right camera, you've got the right audio, you know how to position it correctly. And on top of that, 2 things, the content is relevant, but also you know what's trending. You do the stuff that's trending and funny, and like you play off of shit that's already going viral and you do it well.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, honestly, this is actually something I wanted to talk about in the pod a bit because like I'm having just so much fun making videos. Like I've always been like into social and stuff like that and like social media just from like lifting back in the day, like filming that type of stuff. But like learning the science behind this now of like the algorithm and like what works and what doesn't. And especially like once I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, like dude, in the past, I'm like almost at 14,000 now, and that was just in a few months. So it's like literally like almost 50% growth in just a few months. And a lot of it though is like understanding how to appeal to emotion, how to find those trends, and
Of
then like
course.
one of the biggest things is I look for stuff that other creators do, and I go, how can I make this about
Make it
trading?
trading.
Like
Yep,
that's it.
exactly.
That's all I do.
Yep. And it's
So
crazy
yeah,
how
I
good it
appreciate
does
it.
too, because yeah, like when you think about like the growth in the social media for you, since we spoke last, I feel like a lot of it is probably driven because you're creating. Would you say you're creating more than you're engaging? Because there's two users on social media, creators or engagers. There's also like the voyeurs that just like the cucks that watch us, right? But everybody else is
Yeah,
either creating or engaging. Like I feel like
yeah.
I built my following early on commenting and talking to people and DMing. I feel like that like you kind of have come into this approach of like, I'm going to just create a shit ton of really good content. Are you doing any engaging or are you doing just more creating?
It's a good question. It's mainly creating. I definitely engage, but it's like I don't really take time out of my day to like, I guess like go on like other people's stuff and like comment too
Exactly.
much.
That's what
Like
I'm saying. I
I
got
do
that vibe.
here and there. Yeah, I do here and there, and like I'll throw in little comments on like stuff like you know, and try to interact with people. And like big part of it too is just like I want to be like genuine as well. Like if someone says something where it, like hits home or like and you know it's funny and like whatever like yeah I'll engage in that sense, but a big part of my growth right now is just create, and like dude, that's how all of my growth has been happening, is just from creating. And you always hear too, like entrepreneurs create, they don't really consume. And so like
Yep.
that's all I keep telling myself every day. So like it basically on like my to-do list every day. I'm like create something, like show up on your stories, you know. And you know this is something else too that you know we can kind of get into, but it's when life hits you hard, it's hard to show up and create. Like honestly, it's like, and that's been something I've been like struggling with a bit past few months. But like, you know, like just show up and create, just show up and create and show up and create. But yeah, that's kind of like my route right now. Is just like make cool shit.
And it's
So,
going. And how do you think it's impacting your trading?
oh, trading, it's been good for sure. I would say like it's definitely impacting the business more than anything, and just like in the
Okay.
growth. Like obviously like
Yeah.
the coaching, you know, affiliate brand deals and stuff like that. Trading itself, I always say it's a win-win. Like as I grow as a coach, I also grow as a trader. So that's
For
what's
sure.
cool, because it's like I see like stuff everyone goes through, you know, I remind myself of things I need to do when I go to create something. Like I made a little reel yesterday, you know, on like Sunday prep, and I remind myself, like again, like, you know, what are the things I like to do on Sundays in order to prepare me for the week, right? And like there's, you know, you break down the good, break down the bad, but then a lot of it too is just like is habits. And that's again what I'm trying to portray to everyone as well. Like I guess with my brand of strong trading, you know, I go to the gym every single day pretty much. Like it's a part of my habit, it's part of who I am. So it's like if I ever have like a bad habit of, you know, maybe not wanting to cook my food, or like, you know, I'll be lazy today on like, you know, this and that. And that's been another huge part of it too. Is like dialing in that part of my life. I'm like, okay, well, how do I bring that over to trading? Okay, well, you're getting really lazy at the open and you're just rushing into it, or you're sleeping in a little bit, you know, like get back to waking up earlier, you know, like these are all just little things where that's why I love, I guess, like bodybuilding, powerlifting, all that type of stuff, because it's not just one segment or component. It's like there's all these little nuances that add up to the big picture of like progress and
100%.
growth. And it's the same thing with trading. It's like all these little
100%.
things, you know, they all add up. It's just like you can't just focus on like one little area and expect you to be perfect at it, because other things are going to kind of like be wishy-washy, or, you know, ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows.
In everything in life, bro. In everything in life, 100%. How was Vegas? The it was so shitty, bro. I'm in LA. The time you're not in LA, of course. That worked out like perfectly, right? I was doing the thing with Sam and David, and you were at the Traders for a Cause. So how was that? I saw you made some
Oh,
content there, but how was it?
dude, it was great. Traders for a Cause, again, like that's kind of what put me on the map last year.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's one of my strengths growing up. We talked about this on last spot a little bit. Restaurant industry is being able to just go in the room and just talk to anyone. And so I had made so many connections from the year before where, and you know how it is, trading is it's niche, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, not everyone knows about trading, but when you're in a room with all traders, you know, and people start to know about like who you are, like little things. It was cool, but like weird and different for me at the same time, because I'd be like talking to someone and like someone would come up and interrupt and be like, hey, like real quick, like, can I take a picture with you? Or like, can I ask you something? And I'm like, dude, I'm like, what? Like, it's
Dude,
like,
I saw you
not like,
posted the other day. You were out somewhere bowling or doing something, and somebody came, or at the gym, and somebody came up to you, was like, "Yo, I love your content." So it's not even just in the room of traders. Your content started to get you attention. I had a guy at the house yesterday doing something on the backyard. And he was like, "Bro, what do you do?" And I was like, "I work from home." And he's like, "What do you do from home?" And I was like, "I work in finance." And we're walking and talking, and he's like, "What do you do in finance, bro?" And I was like, "I do some stuff with day trading." You know how it is, bro. You're like apprehensive to tell people sometimes, right?
yeah, of
And
course.
he
Yeah,
goes,
of
"Bro, I've
course.
seen you on TikTok." I was like, "Damn, that's kind of crazy." Like, and if you ever need anything, let me know. Since now you know where I live, I better be nice to this guy. But no, so back to, sorry, you had me thinking about that. Back to Traders for a Cause. The best takeaway or best speaker of the whole event was
Dude, it was Lance Brightstein.
really.
Yeah, and I'm super tight with Lance, so like I'm not
I
trying to be
know that's
biased with this,
biased. I think we're
but
getting a little biased.
okay, so real quick, it was fucking epic, bro. So, Lance, eight-figure trader, a really successful trader, been trading for over 15 years. And he had this insane, I don't know if you heard, but he had this crazy trade on basically the Japanese stock market the night it crashed, like in August, when everything kind of
Really,
ate shit, like when everything kind of capitulated in August. It was like beginning of August,
I
everything
remember.
capitulated. And he like went through this whole like breakdown of it, but his intro to it where he was talking and he does his thing and so he's like, to be a professional trader, he's like, if you could make six figures a year, I consider yourself like a professional trader. He's like, you're like MBA, you're doing great. He's like, might be starting. He's like, but you made it six figures a year. He's like, if you could make seven figures a year as a trader, he's like, you're really, really great, like advanced, playing super well. If you can do eight figures a year, he's like, you're top tier, you're the big dog, right? It's very rare to hit that. He's like, and not too many traders make it to this eight figures a year point. And then he goes, here's my story about how I made eight figures in 1 week. And
Oh
just
my gosh.
everyone's like, oh shit. And he just goes into this insanely detailed breakdown of this crazy trade he took, like where he basically caught the exact bottom that night. He stayed up all night, ended up going long on like the Nikkei futures and like bought like a bunch of stuff on like overnight markets, such as like Bank of America, even bought like some Ethereum, like a bunch of stuff. And like he held it for a few days, had to stop just basically at the lows and let the trade work. And I think in like 3 or 4 days, he made like over 10 million. So
Wow.
it was epic watching him break it down from like the super advanced perspective, number one. And again, just like the inspiration at events like that, like, for everyone listening, if you ever have a chance to go to in-person trading event, like absolutely do it. It is so, so, so worth it just because it's just inspiring and you just realize again like what is capable. But like on another note, Traders for a Cause, like one cool thing that was talked about a lot was something that you've talked about a little bit on your pod was self-regulation. And
Hmm.
this was actually a really core concept of like quite a few of the speakers. And one more other good speaker I really like, this guy named Brian Lee. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah. From Chat with Traders. He was on the
Yeah,
on the
Brian Lee.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, so Brian Lee, great trader, multi seven figure, if not eight figure trader. He did a panel on basically how like self-regulation is so important as traders because anyone at any point can kind of start falling down the rabbit hole and you have to figure out how to kind of get yourself back on the bus and like,
Yeah.
like back on the horse and get back to baseline. And his whole story of Traders for a Cause was he went into how he was about like I think 8 years in, almost 9 years in, and he always treated trading like a business, like always was super strict with it. He would wire out 90% of his profits every single month. He had a system with it. He had his capital pretty much at the same always, but like it was enough for him to obviously make like seven figures a year. So it's like plenty great.
Mm.
And he kind of had some peer pressure for some people where they were like, hey, like, you know what, you should size up a bit more. You could probably push it. You could probably push it. And I think it was in 2022. He was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go in the year. I'm going to try to like size up a bit more, kind of see, stopped wiring out and stopped taking out the 90%, stopped treating it like a business.
Uh-oh.
And then he goes into telling the story about how over 9 months he went into like a $3 million drawdown. And he's showing his P&L calendar, bro, and it is like nightmare fuel. It's like plus 160K, negative 240 grand, plus 320K, negative 360 grand. And it's like, like just the
Wow.
emotional roller coaster of like days like that. And so, yeah, basically went into this whole thing of like, he kind of got out of, treating it like a business. He had to go through all this crazy mental turmoil over the next few months. And basically he finally like reached out for help to mentors, even some mentees, like some people that he's mentored to kind of help get him back to baseline. And they were like, yo, you need to size down, you need to slow down, you need to go back to what's working, start wiring out profits again,
Yeah.
and this is obviously a huge thing in the prop space and everything. Like, so many people want to build this huge cushion in this account. And like, this is, like side note, it's like people I've coached too, they're all like, well, I want to get the account to this before I take a payout. And I'm like, why? Why? No, like put the money in your pocket, you have it there, don't fuck it up. Like, and so
100%.
yeah, but yeah, back to the Brian thing. But so yeah, then he went back to, sizing down, treating it like a business, like slowly taking out profits. And he's like, yeah, it can happen to anyone, really. It really can happen to anyone. So that was Traders for Cause overall, some great talks and everything, a lot on self-regulation, epic talks to Lance, great connecting, great dinners. It was epic. It's always a great weekend. So
What was there anything specific about the self-regulation stuff like biohacking, sleep tracking, all that stuff? Did they go that far down that rabbit hole? Quick 10-second thank you to Edgeful for being the sponsor of today's video. If you're looking for a new edge in markets, in Forex, in stocks, in crypto, or in futures, check out Edgeful. There's a link in the description. And now let's get back to the video.
yeah, they did talk about having like a solid morning routine. That's very
Interesting.
important. Lance is always huge on like that type of stuff of like, like one of the first questions he likes to ask, like when he breaks down traders, like, oh, I want to break down my trading. He's like, okay. He's like, how's your sleep? And everyone's like, wait, what? Like first thing. So, but no, the self-regulation is like a lot of it was just about having guardrails and being able to understand like, again, how to get yourself like just back into like out of the vortex is like what I like to call it, because like that's what happened to me a lot is like I get stuck in the vortex of the charts and I'm like Tanner, you're up $1,000. Stop being a greedy son of a bitch. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
okay. Like, like
Right.
something like that.
100%. So it's kind of like, okay, just bringing you back to the place where you're not making emotional decisions on either side, overly positive or overly negative. Interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you planning to go to the one next year? They do it every year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Every year. I will probably never not go at this point. It's just
Yeah.
such a cool weekend. And again, just the connections, the people, content, it's so worth it. And it's
If I'm free
honestly
next
just,
year, I'm coming with you.
you have to. Yeah, for sure. thousand
We'll
percent.
roll in
Absolutely.
wearing those shirts. You get me
Yeah,
I might need a
I
smaller one
will.
than you, buddy, but yeah, you
I
get me
will.
one of those and we'll rock
I'll
them.
get you one. I'll get you
No,
one for sure.
so that's good, bro. Yeah. So since we talked last, that was one of the big things that's happened. Another big thing you mentioned the prop firms. I'm sure you saw last week with the fast track trading thing. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. That was one of the reasons I hit you up to do the podcast because I was like, there's a couple of guys in the space who I know are pretty tapped in. I know you know about Tradeify, you know about Top Step, you know about the new firms, the old firms. But
Hmm.
then a lot of us never really promoted this other firm that now is out of business. It seems like it's
Hmm.
pretty right, safe to say. So I wanted to get your take on that. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, I will say I didn't actually research too much into it because there's so many firms in this space. That's why I've been picky, like from the get-go with it.
Of
Where like
course.
I won't even really give my attention to some of them because
Right.
it's like I know the big ones. I've pretty much taken all of my payouts through Top Step.
Yep.
Soon to start doing through Tradeify.
Nice.
And really like Top Step and Tradeify are really the only ones that I've done. I've also traded with Take Profit Trader was one of the first ones actually I traded with. I was cool with them. I liked them. And then obviously I did Apex, wasn't a fan, way too many rules, all that type of stuff. But all the other ones, man, like I've had so many reach out to me in this and that, and I honestly just won't even give some of them the time of day. It's just I'm really picky about it, and like the whole rules thing of a lot of these firms, it's the more rules, the more like they're trying to withhold things from you, right?
I agree.
And another thing is like the trailing drawdowns, like intraday trailing drawdowns. Obviously, there's not even too many with static out there unless they're really small accounts. But intraday trailing drawdowns, something I was never a fan of with Apex,
It's really
just
hard.
because especially if you're managing and scaling, it's like, dude, why should I be punished if I'm just managing my position, right?
Right.
And this is even like a thing that like a lot of the big names, like even like Lance and some of these dudes, like they have a problem with this stuff in the space because they say like a prop firm should be there to support you and help you. Like it should be there to grow with you as a trader. Obviously, the business model of a lot of these places unfortunately is preying on the people that have no experience. So it's like,
100%.
taking a payout alone is just a big feat if you can do it. To do it consistently is even a whole another thing. And it's like, the prop firms that are actually trying to be there and like help you and have like good rules and stuff like that. That's why I like Tradeify, like here we go. We're gonna hype up Brett. But like I do like it a lot so far. And like with the rules, some people complain, oh, that 20% consistency rule is BS. And I'm like, dude, well, if you're just treating all of the accounts like you're good, like you're home running some of them overnight or like whatever, it's like that's not really how you normally trade, right? It's like I personally want to build a system that I'm familiar with that is repeatable day in and day out. And so it's like if
100%.
you have some outliers there where you're just like randomly, throwing it on black or 00 and it just happens to hit and you're like, oh my gosh, guys, trust me, I've done that before, especially with
Of
Top Step. I
course.
think that's actually
Of
one of like the
course.
drawdowns. One of the bad things is like I've had some huge days overnight with Top Step and like, I'm all like dopamine ridden the next day. I'm like, let's go. And then of course the next couple days I'm like, oh shit, I adjusted my daily loss limit too much. I gave it too much back. So it doesn't really create that consistency. So, back to Tradeify, it's like the consistency rule is good. Honestly, it is a good thing because depending how you trade, of course, it's like if you're intraday trading and if you're trading futures, which from experience at this point, and for everyone out there that doesn't know, futures are like they're the most efficient product out there. And when I say efficient, I mean you're not going to find too many like broken slot machine type scenarios.
For sure.
It's too big of a market. It preys on liquidity. Every time you long high a day, you're probably going to get stuffed. Every time you short low a day, you're probably going to get stuffed. Can it work sometimes? Yes, but like futures themselves, the markets themselves are so efficient that like you need to learn how to scalp. You need to learn how to take gains into structure. And if you don't learn how to do that, you're going to have a hard time overall. So it's like the consistency rule is good because it's like it's
Yeah.
creating those good habits over and over. And like that's why in the space of, I guess like Tradeify, I do like it.
Yeah.
I like the huge drawdown. Obviously, $7,500
Dude,
drawdown is is
7,500 all. And the crazy thing is, look at, and I was talking about this in my weekly review yesterday. Look at the pricing difference between 50, 100, and then 150 with Tradeify. It's stupid almost to not do the 150 when it's like less than $200 more to like more than triple or more than double your drawdown. So you can, yeah, you have to trade a little bit bigger, but if you can mentally get used to that, and we can maybe touch on that as like a side point of like getting more comfortable trading bigger size, because you can't buy 150K with $7,500 of drawdown and trade it like a 50K account. You
no,
got to
yeah, no
put
way.
some more.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do that. It wouldn't make sense, right?
yeah,
But I do like what you said about the consistency rule, bro, because I feel like for me to get a payout with Tradeify in my first month of ever trying with them, that says something of like, you follow these rules and if you know kind of what you're doing, you can get a payout. So I've been like actually kind of riding off of that, not because I don't feel like a 20% consistency rule gets you to a payout by luck. That's what
yeah.
it really shows. You got to know a system. You have to have a consistent approach, unless you are really lucky, right? Because you have to have 10 trading days, the 5 minimum of whatever the balance, right? So there's still these other things you got to check that show this guy knows how to trade. That's why he took this account. He's willing to spend a little bit more money in the upfront. So all the people that I've been sending over there have been really loving it. I haven't had a single negative complaint. Not to hype Brett up even more, but for real, yeah, it's been really good. Do you think Top Step will ever do an instant funded account?
Um, that's a good question. I think they might like consider it at some point.
I think Michael's
But
against it. I heard him on Top Step TV and he was saying he's not for it. So I'm curious.
maybe
I've
not.
heard,
Well, that's the thing too. He's been around for like that firm's been around for so long. They know what
yeah,
works. And
right.
honestly, they do have the best credibility like out there because they're
It's
so
true.
established.
It's true.
I have no issues with Top Step personally. It's like
No.
I've taken like 20 something payouts probably from Top Step, like a lot.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's
Never
it's
an issue.
easy, it's
If
reliable,
you
never
follow
an
the
issue.
rules there, never. I think Brett makes the best point about them. If you're going to call it an evaluation, it should be difficult, right? To be able to pass the thing in 2 days. I get where he's going to stand and make his argument, say, look, we have a tighter rule. We're actually vetting traders a little bit harder here. It's a little bit. So I get that. But other than that, I think they're almost the same offering. And for now, Tradeify has been legit. I mean, they're very new, right? So we got to say, like,
Mhm.
it's very new still. Brett seems like a really good guy. Seems like he's got. Did you see he tweeted yesterday? He's like, what about an options prop firm? I'm like,
Dude,
listen,
I
buddy,
saw that this morning. I was like,
I
oh shit.
he's always cooking on something, bro. He showed me some of the other stuff he has. He's got like a million things. He's one of those guys that's just got a lot going
Yeah.
on, all in the trading space, all trying to, develop and help traders. But he really gets, it seems like there's something about the data, bro. They want our data. They want our trade data,
Hmm.
whether they want to follow it or fade it or just sell it to someone else. I have no idea. But it seems like the
Hmm.
people that are making a lot of money in this prop firm space, if we're going to call it prop firms, which it's really not, like you said, it's more like funding companies or whatever. They want
Hmm.
data. They just want our data
Hmm.
because they know majority of people are going to lose the accounts. Even if you take a couple of payouts, you lose a lot of the XFAs. Has that been your experience? Like when you take payouts, do you end up losing the XFAs and having to go get more usually after a couple of payouts? The highly anticipated sequel to Futures 101 is now available. We're calling it Futures 2.0. It's more advanced, it's more detailed, there's more chart markups, and therefore there's more learning and understanding for you. It's only available on ASFX TV. Make sure you go check it out right now.
Oh yeah, and so this is something I think that actually isn't talked about a lot in the space, but you see some of the big guys doing this where, they're, oh, I got, I have 10 fresh accounts funded, ready to go. Like there's a few guys on Twitter, like Lanto Trades,
Yep,
Brian Stocks, like these
yep,
guys are just
yep,
like they're like assassins of the prop firm space. Like they do really well. But
yep.
like there's a reasons why they take so many combines and stuff like that and have so many accounts loaded that because they don't mind blowing some and then just like reloading them because
Right.
there is a statistical advantage to that, like at some point where again, like it doesn't equate risk wise. It's like if, and this was actually kind of going into, I had like one of my like worst days in a while on Wednesday of last week. And basically I hit just like max loss on like the Tradeify accounts. Luckily, they have that buffer built in of like the max. And I normally have a daily loss limit on, but I kind of just went on tilt that day and I just took it off.
Were you trying to do
I'm not
short it
perfect.
after the Trump pump?
No, it was it that day? I think it
Wednesday
was
was
that
the
day.
day after the election.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I was just like back and forth and just like I was trying to short some areas, long some areas, and I was just
Out
wrong
of the
the whole
pocket.
time.
Yeah, it happens,
Yeah,
bro.
I
It
was out of
happens.
the pocket and like also my internet wasn't working that morning, so like that kind of caused all of it where I was like frantically trying to get everything ready and I was just like I wasn't prepared. So, but back to like, the asymmetrical risk thing is like hit
Yeah.
the max loss, but it's like across, I think it was across 5 accounts. So it's like, when I put it in my trade Zella, I'm like, oh my God, I lost like
It looks awful. Right.
15K or something like that.
Right.
But
Right.
like it didn't cost me that much to get that. But
Right.
again, like I like hitting a max loss on these accounts, like it's like for me, and like that's like rookie behavior that I don't want to practice. And
I
so it
get that,
does
bro. I'm
come.
the
I'm like,
same way. I'm not because I mean, we're like you said, you can do the math. Look at Brian, look at Lanto. These guys will, and I mean, we're not throwing names under that I don't think are they are open about this. Like Rips is open about how much he spends on combines. Even
mhm,
Patrick Wheeland, I think, has said many times how
mhm,
much he spends on combines. So there's certain people that are taking the approach of like, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars, but those are then the guys that are going to take 20, 30, 40K out almost every single month, it seems like. You know what I'm saying? Versus like Isaac, the guy I had on last week, he's got one XFA basically that got turned into a live account, built up a big enough buffer in that. And he takes, like you were talking about Brian, that takes the minimum amount. He does that every month, takes some out of it. So there's many different approaches to kill the prop firm game, right? And like you have guys like Isaac that hate copy trading. Michael, we know that runs Top Step doesn't love copy trading, but then there's these guys that are making tons of money copy trading. That guy Kane that got the 1.9 million from Apex copy trading. So it's like,
yep,
yeah, it's like I think you have to pick your path. And you and I are very similar. I feel like where it's like, yeah, we could do that for maybe a month or two. And then you'd have to really commit to it to then see the reward from that type of a risk. Or you can just kind of slow and steady. Like Brett hooked me up with a couple of accounts when I did some videos for them. I'm sure he
mhm,
did that for a lot of guys. So like that helped me kind of get my
mhm,
start with Tradeify. And I feel like,
mhm.
dude, 3 accounts, 5 accounts, like that's plenty. Like anything more than that, I feel like I'm stretching myself. You know what I'm saying? Because it just becomes a
Yeah.
lot.
And I think like in like this topic of things is really interesting because when you have so many accounts,
Mhm.
it's like you forget about the leverage of the risk overall, right? And
Oh
like I
yeah.
that's kind of what I try to forget I forget about a lot. And like right now, like my goal right now is I want to take a max payout with Tradeify. I'm like, I have 7 accounts. I'm like, I want to take that
I know, me too.
$21,000 payout.
Yep,
I'm
yep, take
like,
the 20.
that's my goal, but it doesn't need to happen this exact payout window, right?
I
Or
know.
like, if you
But I want
slowly
it
do
to.
it, I know you want it to, but I'm like, all right, if I can build this and do it right. So I'm like kind of like ignoring the next like few, like I think on the 15th is the payout window. And like
Yep.
based on how my trading's going, I should be eligible on a few of my accounts. And so I'm like, I'm gonna be in that stuck place where I'm like, do I take some money from this one and like, try not on these?
Delay it,
But
delay the
delay
short-term
it.
gratification.
Exactly. So like, and that's the thing, like I think like what you said about Isaac as well is really cool is, having a big enough buffer once you get up there, you can then start having those smaller days because you
A
have a buffer.
hundred percent, a hundred
And so
percent.
and that's where a lot of people in this space get screwed because they want the first payout. They want that big money right away, right away, right away.
Yep. Yep.
And so it's like, they're rushing it, rushing it, rushing it, rushing it. And, that's why like I'm trying to kind of view this a little bit differently with the Tradeify stuff. And the drawdown's so big that I'm like, I have a lot of breathing room, dude. Like I could do this. I'm like, I know I can do it.
100%.
So yeah, one other thing, of like the whole like multiple accounts thing where you're like throwing some here, throwing some there is what I noticed is if I have accounts with Top Step and with Tradeify or like with another, I remember like even at one point, I had Take Profit Trader
Yep.
trying to like manage the trades between all the brokers.
I'm in the same boat as you, bro. It's
fucks
hard.
me up, bro.
And
fucks me up.
And I'm trying to run a stream or I'm talking to people too at the same time. It's very, people are like, oh, you just don't just trade all the, no, bro, because this one's on Tradeivate. Tradeivate trade copying is not user friendly compared to Top Step X. This one's on Top Step X. And how important is it to feel the moment, like especially because you and I trade like short-term trades, very like a day trading, scalping kind of mindset. Like you got to feel the market, right? Like a lot of my trades, like they shouldn't be read for too long. If I'm in a trade for 15 minutes and it's a drawdown, my stats say that that's not good. So it's like if I'm not feeling the momentum, and that means if I'm a second late, I might not be in the same groove, it can fuck up the whole trade. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And then like, getting used to sizing as well. It's like, well, are the Top Step accounts the same size? Especially from Tradeify, it's different sizing wise. And that's a thing is like when you said you have to go to the 150K accounts on Tradeify, where you have to get used to the sizing. You do. Like it's like
you go from throwing micros to minis in like a second. You have to think about that.
Yeah. And then you look at your like, oh shit, if this trade's wrong here. Like I remember I had a trade last week where it was like it was a pullback to VWAP classic, but initially on the trade, it was like just the first test of VWAP and it had one more sweep of the lows and then it worked. So initially it stopped me out. And it was NQ, just two full-size contracts, but that quick stop out was $600. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. And then it held and then I got long and it worked. And then it worked for like 2,300 and 2,400. And I'm like, okay, well, that paid off much better.
Yes,
but
exactly.
But yeah, you got to get used to that because you're like, oh, my quick stop. Yeah, structurally speaking, you did the right thing. And it wasn't actually even like a bad stop at all. But still, size-wise, $600. There you go.
Yeah, so like over time, one of the things I mentioned earlier, we'll come back to the prop firms maybe in a second, but like you're talking about position sizing and getting used to bigger size. I feel like that's not something that's very teachable. It has to be practiced. Like you have to almost force yourself to trade bigger. And then over time, you just get more used to that P&L. Do you have any other tips to that? Because I know that that's not like the best coaching advice. You know what I mean? That just is like, suck it up and keep trading, buttercup. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know a fix to it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question because I get this question with my coaching all the time where people are like, oh, like, should I have the same fixed dollar amount for, for this? And I'm like, well, I personally like to trade based on structure. And again, like it really does depend on your mindset. Because I even have some people that I coach where I have one dude where his goal is if he's up 40 points in NQ, he closes the trade and he's done with the day. And that's been working for him. He's like, oh, I took my 40 points. He's like, how can I manage this better? I was like, all right, well, if you're trading 2 full-size NQ contracts, you're up 40 points, take off one, let the other one run, move your stop up, or trade micros, take off, a bulk of them, 80%, whatever it is. So it's like, that works for some people psychology-wise. For
sure.
And again, like, the beauty of trading is it's not one size fits all. It depends what works for you and like what you're trying to build. What's your system, right? And this is like what I just keep trying to hammer, I guess, with all my content too, is I'm like, what is your system? What is your edge? Because like I coach people that have, they'll trade pullbacks to EMAs as one of their main strategy. They trade opening range breaks. Some trade ICT. Some trade pullbacks to VWAP. Some trade levels. They all trade different stuff. But I'm like, when we look into their data, I'm like, all right, well, what makes sense to you here the most? Well, I really like the opening range break here, on the 15-minute chart. I'm like, okay, like, how do we like amplify that? How do we make sure that we understand it more? That's your system, right? That's your edge. That's what you're building. Like, yeah, well, I don't know. I was thinking about this because I watched this and I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, what makes sense to you? And so again, like, I have some people that are, well, the 40 points thing is working. I'm like, perfect. Let's stick with that. Let's keep like, let's maximize that if it makes sense to you.
Right.
So, like that's with me, like with VWAP, like, dude, like at this point, I pretty much only trade pull luck to VWAP. Sometimes I'll trade, holds of low a day or something like that, or like, double bottom type setups like that. But it
I like
all
that
has to be
trade.
like,
I know
has to
exactly
be
what you're
based,
talking about.
yeah, it has to be based on like a level though too. Like
There
that's
has to,
like
right. And I got to be overall still bullish on it for sure. If I'm going to be
yeah,
long off a double bottom and
yeah,
then like use that low a day VWAP to ride it. Yeah, for sure. I like
yeah.
the New York VWAP bounce trades. That was my one trade last week on Wednesday. That was the only trade I took last week was a New York VWAP bounce. I like it when it actually set up really nice on Wednesday. It sat on the New York VWAP for like 5 minutes going into the start of the next 15-minute candle. And I knew based on the higher low previous, if this was to take out that and go red on this next 15-minute bar, I don't want this. So I felt really good about the stop. I felt good about the take of VWAP. And I was like, Trump won. I was kind of bullish overall. So that ended up being my winner on Wednesday. To transition away from that position sizing thing just for a second. And then I want to go back to prop firms because I think I got something that we should touch on. What do you think about the election? Short
Oh,
politics. Like, you think it's good for the market, good for everything? Are you skeptical of this
I
pop?
Trump is great for the market. I will say it is a big pop for sure. Like
Big pop.
I'm weary of, holding stuff for too long, and I'm
Yep.
worried about getting exposed up here for sure.
100%.
Again, that's why I'm going back to just bread and butter. Like one thing that's helped me a lot, even in my system overall, like the past like few months, is just staying objective with one thing and like using VWAP as that objective like piece of information. Are we trading above it or below it, right? And it's like every time price action is like kind of wonky or like I'm like, oh, it's kind of choppy here. I understand. I will literally pull myself into third person and I'll be like, Tanner, be objective. We just
What?
rejected VWAP 5 times.
Right.
It's an hour and a half after the open. I was like, this thing's probably going to eat shit at some point. Remember, it happened like I think last week on Monday. YM. I traded YM. It was like just super ugly consolidating, but I noticed and it was like pissing me off because I was kind of getting chopped up a little bit, and I pull myself like out of the vortex and I go, Tanner, be objective. What's black and white here? I'm like, well, we've rejected VWAP 5 times, and it's almost 2 hours after the open. I'm like, dude, this thing's gonna eat shit. I was like, the algos want this thing to go down. Yeah, it's not happening how you want it this second, but being objective and black and white about it is telling you that based on your strategy, what you've been studying, this probably should dump. And then what do you know? We ended up dumping 200 points. I caught like a huge dump and I was like, let's go. And like, it's those little moments too, like when you're building edge or building a strategy where you're like, oh, fuck, I know what I'm doing. I just need to pull my emotions out of it and just be objective with it. So,
Yep. And it gets very emotional very quick. But that's it.
yeah.
Self-awareness goes back to what you said before about self-regulation. So no, that's good. Good
Yeah.
tip. What do you think about when it comes back to the prop firm stuff? What do you think about the attention that some of the guys that represent certain firms are trying to get on social media? I asked a couple of my recent guests this. I've been talking to people just about what do you like? What's the take? You saw the guy Scott from Fast Track, how crazy he was
Yeah.
acting on Twitter. Do you have any advice for people that are maybe new to the funding stuff and they are like seeing all the flash? Any advice on how to find a trustworthy firm? Because you said already the firms that you think are really good, Top Step and Tradeify and Take Profit. But any advice to the guys? Because like you said, there's a ton out there to choose from.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I know at the end of the day, some of like the beef or camaraderie, it's like what is that old saying? Like any publicity is
Is
good
good
publicity
publicity.
type.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Are you going to say we should start a fake beef? Because I'm not
I
in
think
for
we
it.
should. I think we should. So,
All right, fine. We're starting it.
so like dude, I ignore a lot of it, honestly. Like I'll read a little bit of this stuff here and there, and then I'll just be like, oh, this guy's fucking clown. Or
I
like,
know, bro.
whatever.
It's my same reaction.
You
Sometimes it
know,
sucks
I'm
me
just
in. I'm like,
like,
oh, wait, I kind of want to know who's talking shit. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
yeah, exactly. But I also understand, like, again, like it's like everyone just they want their business. They want their business. They want their business. And then the firms that I think what the biggest red flag for everyone out there, prop firm wise, is if a firm takes a long time to pay you out, that is like the #1 red flag. It's like,
100%.
and that happened with Apex early on. I know I've heard they gotten better at it and stuff like that. And obviously a firm with their scale, like it makes sense. But still, it's like if a firm lags on paying you out, Top Step doesn't lag on that shit, dude. They got, they're one of the biggest in the industry, if not the biggest. It's like it takes a day or two. It's pretty fucking fast. So if a
Yep.
firm lags on paying you out, That's a huge red flag, number one. So if you start seeing stuff like that, especially if they don't like explain why, or they give like a deadline of whatever it is, that's why Brett's really good with Tradeify about that so far. It's like, dude, it's instant for like most people. That's the number one red flag, I'd say, when it comes to the beef and stuff like that. All the camaraderie of this person talking shit on this firm, that firm. It's like, if they're just trying to pull you in for marketing at the end of the day, you like use your own judgment based on the rules. And again, what fits your system and makes sense for you. But red flag wise, yeah, I say just judge based on like how they pay out, and how consistent they are with that. So
good, well said. I mean, FTT was like 60 days delayed.
That's
like,
insane, dude.
That's crazy. It's crazy. It got to that point, in my opinion, before everybody started like realizing this was done.
What was that? What was that one that God, I think it was the funded. Was it the funded trader?
Yeah, they were like a 4X one.
They had one with like the night challenges and stuff on Instagram.
Yep.
And even now to this day, like they're trying to get back.
People still buy from them, bro. It's crazy. People still buy.
But people also
a lot of people
shit on them in the comments.
Yes, a lot of people
and I'm like, damn. So
yeah. I mean, there was a firm, SFT, Skill Funded Traders or something like that. That went under. Like a lot of them firms went under. A couple of months go by. People listening to this are gonna be like, "Oh, I forgot about that firm." Till Austin just said that. That's how it is in this business. But it probably brings more scrutiny overall. They've been talking whispers, mumblings about regulation coming at the start of the year, pushing people more to live accounts, right? And then being more firm about who gets put to live accounts. What does that mean for us? We'll see. I think there's always going to be some way to find an edge in this online funding space. I don't see this industry getting shut down. And that's really what everybody's asking, right? No one gives a shit if this firm or that firm goes under. The only people that care are the people that run those companies. The rest of us as consumers, as long as it's an opportunity, it's all we care about. So for everybody worried that regulation is going to shut it down, I tell everybody, like, from my opinion, not a regulator, but I just think that's not going to happen. They're not shutting the whole industry down. What do you think?
No. Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously, it's a little bit in the back of my mind at some point. I'm like, could this happen like across the board? But so far, the ones that have been established for a long time as well, I think is more like kind of seep in. Like that's when they start having more troubles and difficulties. Because like, I know if it came down to it, like Top Step would fight every way it could to make it work because they've been around for so long and they know 100%. The space really well. So it's like, and again, if you know how to use prop firms to your advantage, they are a great tool. It's 100%. Like if you are really, really new to trading and you're just throwing stuff at the wall, you're going to spend a lot of money on combines and you're better off just like demo trading and whatnot.
Or go to the casino.
Yeah, or go to the casino. And again, you still have a luxury, though, of only spending a small amount of money for the potential to make a lot of money, where in our learning curve, before there really was not
the way it was, bro. No, you lost money you just worked for.
You take a $2,000 loss, it's a real $2,000 loss. Yes, it's a rip, right? And so that, it's different.
Did you talk to Lance about this at Traders for a Cause? Because he hates all of these prop firms basically for the small percentage of people. He has admitted recently on Twitter, I feel like a little bit more. He's like, yep, some of you 0.1% people can get payouts, but the rest, 99% of that business is made up on failure. He ain't wrong. What did you talk to him about it when you saw him? What did he say?
So I've talked to him about this a bunch actually, because his whole thing, what he doesn't like is the fact that they do prey on super noobs and beginners. And they try to make it seem a bit easier than it is. Because even in Lance's career, he had a podcast recently where it shows like his P&L curve over time.
I saw that.
Yeah, the first 2 years, he didn't make any money. Yeah. And that's sitting next to like, 8-figure traders, trading with them every single day, all the resources at the prop firm. And this is something I love to talk about with the learning curve, because like I have tons of clients who are like, oh, like, I've been trading for a year now, it's still not clicking. And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna take fucking time, bro. And so it's like, Lance putting information like that out there, like, look, it took me 2 years just to even like basically break even, like with all the best resources. And not until like year 5 or 6 did he really start to actually even like start to see like decent growth. And then it really starts to like, compound after that. But again, like that's with all the resources. So it's like in these beginning stages of when you're developing, it's not just going to happen right away. It's going to take a lot more time than you think. So, when it comes to the prop firms, his whole thing is like, too many people think that it's going to be easy. And these prop firms, again, are preying on like the weak.
Yeah.
where a prop firm to him is someone is something actually like fully helping you with all the resources,
100%.
not having any constricted rules, right? So like, no dollar cost averaging, all that type of stuff. He's like, you should be able to trade how you want to trade. And I do believe like if there is going to be a firm out there one day to like potentially do something like that, where there's just like no rules in a way, I know it would be kind of weird to do that, but that would be like the epitome of like the best firm, right? It's like,
Sure.
you have a static drawdown. You maybe have like a how many days till you can take a payout, but like that's it. No consistency, no this, no that. Like I think that would be like the
Honestly, you could just
ultimate
put a
firm.
day limit on it.
Yeah,
90
that's
days,
it.
no payout. Trade this for 3 months. Prove us to you can trade. No one would do it. Nobody would pay
Yeah,
for that ever. But that, because if you can trade, you can keep an account more than 3 months. If you can't trade, you'll lose the
yeah,
account within 3 months. You could probably even do 60 days, and those people will lose that account within 60 days. So,
yeah.
yeah, that would be an interesting I mean, when I worked at T3 and I got to go up there and see the floor, and like I spent a couple of days there. I did not even spend a full week in a row working there. Maybe over the course of my year and a half there, I did. But like it would have been so cool to be able to sit next to a trader. Like I learned so much when I went to that seminar and I heard their guy, Scott Redler, speak, and we got to watch him trade and that whole thing. Like, so imagine that for 2 years, you're sitting with people. And that's why, it's cool for you and me to be able to turn and offer our services to people where it's like, yeah, come sit with me, come work with me as much as you can and get my experience. No, it's not SMB, but you know how hard
Mhm.
it is to get into SMB now? You got to have a
Yeah,
degree from Penn and masters from wherever, and you got to be probably super smart and probably have a sick recommendation. It's probably extremely hard. So these prop firms offer a huge opportunity. Guys like us kind of bridge the gap, give people a community to find a virtual trading floor atmosphere with, right? And then trade with those people and learn every day. But like you said, it's hard to get people to buy into that process of like, use this as a tool to get better. Stop using it as a tool to try to flip your money and get rich, right? Because if
yeah,
you do that,
yeah,
you're going to spend a shit ton. So you still might spend less than you and me lost, like you said, but you're going to spend a lot. So I agree with
yeah.
you. And especially now, what it does is it shows the people that know how to trade, right? Like the guys on YouTube and shit that make all these videos. If he's not posting, pretty regular payouts, if not just a couple a year. I mean, you've taken 20 plus payouts. What do you think the average person takes in payouts in a year? 5, 6 on the guys that are taking payouts, not even just the people,
Yeah,
right?
it depends, I guess, how you go about it too, right? It's like, like I was doing like I get $1,000 above the buffer on any account, boom, take out a grand, take out a grand, take out
100%,
a grand. Like
100%,
that's how I
100%.
that's how I did it with Top Step for like a majority of all this so far. But
Yep.
there are some people that like to build it up a little bit more, but it's like average wise, I mean, if you're taking at least a payout a month, it's like that's solid in my opinion.
Exactly. That's what
And
I'm
it's
saying. And you don't make money every month. So I think like 6 to 10 payouts a year is way above average compared to
mhm,
all of the people that are buying challenges. Majority of
mhm,
people don't get a single payout. But I think
mhm,
Top Step put up, they paid out like 12 million or something like that in a week or a month. Average
mhm.
payout was like 1,500, 1,400.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's possible for sure if you know how to do it.
Yep. Yep. So what's been good with the VWAP? Let's talk about that to finish up. Talk to me about some trades recently. You talked about Wednesday, which was a rough day. What about some good stuff? What's been good recently?
Yeah, so I mean, I caught that big trade on Monday. So what's been crazy recently is like I've kind of been in this like bad little phase of like taking a lot of haircuts where it's like, oh, I'm wrong here, I'm wrong here, I'm wrong here. So like my win to loss ratio is like once I do win though, it's big. So it's like 4 to 1. So it's like, oh, like small loss, small loss, small loss, small loss. Before I know it, I'm like, oh, I'm taking like 4 or 5 like little losses. I'm like, and then all of a sudden again, I catch like one big one. But like what's really just helped me with VWAP overall recently is again just ignoring everything and just trying to be objective on that day in and day out because most of the time it is such an objective piece of information that works very well. And like, you do the same thing where you have New York session and the 24-hour session. So it's like that is like part of my, we talked about this last pod, like the secret sauce of understanding how both of them do come into play. One can kind of be support for the other. And then there are just some days where it's sandwiched in between or like we're
Mhm.
really choppy, but being able to recognize like, okay, like it's not a good reference point today. And that's fine. That will happen here and there. Again,
Mhm.
no system is perfect, no strategy is
Of course.
perfect. But if you're looking at it like 8 out of 10 times, it's pretty objective. And like that is a majority of just when I'm trading too. I'm like, all right, are we getting back above it? Are we ripping through both of them? It's like
Nice.
that's indicating strength on the day. So yeah,
Are you
I've had
using
some like
previous day New York VWAP at all? Have you been using the previous 930?
No. So it
All
just
right.
fresh 24. I guess the
I
fresh
might put
24
you on
hour.
to something. Might put you on to
Okay.
something. It's in his book.
Uh,
It's in, I mean, we were doing a thing in our group where we were all just going through the book, sharing like some of our highlights because everybody's got the Brian Shannon VWAP book all highlighted, right? And that was one thing that continued to come up. Previous day New York VWAP. I've been tracking my trade. It's got like a 75% win rate. I'm buying the bounce on that as it comes back through. So we'll pull back down to it. Maybe we'll take out one of those edge full stats or something like that, fill a gap or something, find support at previous day. I'm taking it off of previous day VWAP. And on the trades I'm thinking of, I'm trading back up to opening range low or back up to New York VWAP, which is like the first level that's going to be above you. So you'll have multiple targets above you that you can choose to trail stop, or you can scalp it off that previous day VWAP right up to today's New York VWAP. And it's like a counter trend if we're selling off maybe, but you're still long biased. It's like my last level to be a buyer for the day. Once we
mm,
take that VWAP previous day, Brian said that that's where he gets into like this defensive mode and he starts to see if the EMAs start to cross on the higher time frames, because then that means he's entering a dip and you don't want to be buying if we're entering a dip. But that's just a little thing that I've been using too. So that's interesting. So you've been paper cutting yourself, hair cutting yourself, you said a little bit more than usual. Why do you think that is at all time highs? Do you think it's because it's up until the Trump pump, it was a little bit more sideways in between these levels that we've been trying to move to? What do you think the reason is for more paper cuts
yeah,
now than before?
I think because, but yeah, before I was kind of like we were really sideways for a bit, so like the VWAP wasn't working as strongly, and
Yep.
so I've just been a little bit more hesitant lately instead of again being objective about it, black and white. And so that's one thing I've been like trying to work on and like clean up, and like especially when I went through my review yesterday, I was like, dude, you're taking so many little paper cuts here and there. Slow it down, right? Like when in doubt, slow it down. That's like always like my
100%.
favorite thing to do. And it's again, it goes back to the self-regulation. It's like, how are you going to catch yourself in the moment and realize, like, dude, I'm being erratic right now. I need to slow it down. And like just being objective, like I just keep pulling myself back and say, be objective. Like that's helped me more than anything. Side little tangent note. I went to dinner with a bunch of the SMB Capital guys
Oh, how was
in
that?
Vegas. Yeah, it was sick. Like with like Lance and like James that does all their videos. I don't know. He like does a lot of their videos recently.
Okay.
So James was at dinner and he's like sits next to me and I'm chatting with him and kind of told him about like, oh, he's so big on like edge. He's like, well, what's your edge? What's your edge? Like,
Tell me
and
your
I'm like,
alpha.
well, like, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, I was like, honestly, I just trade a lot of pullback to VWAP. It's like one of my favorites. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, we just made a video on this. He's like, so do you trade like the pullback into it or like the bounce off VWAP like back into high a day? I was like, the bounce off VWAP back into high a day. And he talks about, he's like, dude, he's like, it's crazy. He's like, you'll have like a nice rip at the open. He's like, it'll casually fade. And right when it comes into VWAP, he's like, these buying programs turn back on for these big institutions and just rip
Really?
it back to high a day. So like literally he's talking about this stuff and like, I'm like,
So
all
what
right,
he's
cool.
saying, there's
I'm doing
algos that
something
are
right.
going to kick on and buy a lot of these indices or at whatever asset
Yes,
is at New York VWAP. Yeah, that makes sense because in
exactly.
Brian's book, he talks about how the big guys are always saying, get me VWAP, get me VWAP. And they're tracking that
hmm
price very accurately. So that makes
hmm
sense to turn that algo on there.
Yeah. So like hearing that from like someone at SMB who's been there for like 10 years, makes all these videos on it. I was like,
Makes it
all right,
valid.
cool. I was like, again, it works. I'm like, stick with it. Keep perfecting it, keep perfecting it, keep perfecting it. It's like it works. So I'm like, okay, I'm
It,
gonna keep
it,
doing it.
it's crazy because it's so unbiased. It's such a good indicator. Like everything else fucking sucks, in my opinion, compared to VWAP, just being
Sucks,
blunt.
dude. Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
it's so stupid because I'm stupid because I cloud myself sometimes with Twitter making me bearish because jobs numbers, or when, on the last NFP,
Yes.
I missed the long on Friday because of the jobs numbers making me bearish. And the VWAP just says, fucking buy it, bro. Just shut up and buy the bounce. Nope, I'm just
Mhm.
on the sideline, like, no, the jobs numbers are so I will cloud myself. The VWAP never is wrong.
Exactly. And that goes back to be objective. Like again, like
Yes.
there's so much noise out there. So like that's what I try to do every single day of when the charts are doing their thing. I'm like, fuck the numbers, fuck this, fuck that. I'm like, what is objective here that actually works? I'm like, well, we are clearly rejecting VWAP all day, or we're clearly bouncing off it all morning. I was like, this thing is going to hold or it's going to dump. I was like, based on just looking at this chart. I'm like, that's it. So
Have you been
it's
playing
something.
longs or shorts more?
Longs. I'm a long bias trader
I
overall.
figured. Yeah, me too.
And it's like for me to go short, it takes again a lot of probably paper cuts before I finally do that. Or it's like just very, very clear where I'm like, okay, it's just something I'm in my brain, like when I'm used to, right? Like your eyes are used to a chart moving a certain way, how we pull back, how things hold. And it's just like I'm just a long bias trader, man. That's what I like.
When you look back on last week, are you pissed that you didn't make more money long?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always pissed when I don't make money for,
Because I am.
XYZ reason.
It kind
Yeah,
of
for
annoys me,
sure.
bro. It's so bullish, but at the same time, I don't want to
I
be too hard
know.
and negative. Like, and I know you see that too. But like, God, to a long bias trader last week, in hindsight, even with the Trump thing, was so easy, but it was very difficult for me to participate in that type of movement. It was just so strong. Is
Yeah,
that crazy to say?
exactly. And it makes sense though, because like again, when it is that strong, you're like, oh my God, I should have been involved here. And then it's hindsight. You're like, oh well, Trump winning, of course this is gonna work. Of course, of course.
Of
But
course.
one thing that really helps is like over time, it's every day is a fresh day. And that's what I keep trying to remind myself. So I actually don't have too much FOMO from last week.
Yeah, good. That's good.
More just like dissecting my big loss on Wednesday of how I can kind
That's
of
what I
get that
figured
back.
you were gonna
And
say.
I'm almost back to, I only took a couple days and like I'm almost
Yeah,
close
they're
back to
usually
where I was.
recoverable. That's the good thing
Yeah.
about that limit in place.
Yeah.
With Tradeify, are you trading on Tradeivate or did you go with a different thing? Are they only
Trade of eight.
Tradeivate? What do you
Trade of
think of
eight,
the
yeah.
copy trading on there? It's kind of annoying,
It
isn't it?
it
It's
works.
not
I'm
as
used.
nice looking. It does work. It's fine. I'm just,
Yeah,
you know,
it's an aesthetic thing too. Like for
it
some
is.
reason, Top Step X with my eyes. I don't know why. I'm like it just like it's just cleaner. Like I
Oh
can't. I
my
don't know if it's
God,
just
yeah.
the
Because
charts
it's
or
the
what it
trading view. Yeah,
is.
I mean, the
Yeah,
trade of eight makes me feel like it's 1999 or like
yeah,
2005. And it's like, no,
yeah,
we're keeping this to be nostalgic. It's like, why? We could have such a
yeah,
better user interface. It's 2025 almost. Like,
yeah.
get with the fucking program. You ever tried to do anything on their phone app? It's all, or on their web browser on the phone? It's awful.
Awful. No,
It's
yeah,
awful.
no.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
not a fan. Not a fan.
not a fan. I wonder, has Brett ever said if he's going to do any other options?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think he's just sticking with Trade of Eight so far. I haven't talked to him too much in depth about that.
Yeah.
But like, if he ever does, he'd probably have to go. I mean, TopSub X, that broker, that's licensed by another actual broker, right? So it's like, couldn't that platform technically come over to other firms?
You would think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. Or you could buy like a licensing a deal to then be able to use it as well, something like that. Yeah.
Like a
Yeah, I
white
don't
white
know.
label type thing. Yeah. I don't
I
know.
should have,
Good question.
last night Brett was doing a Twitter Spaces. He's been big on the Twitter Spaces since the
Mhm,
whole FTT thing. So he's like trying to be out
mhm.
there talking and stuff. And I should have asked him on the Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
What's been good
I
with your
think it,
Twitter account? I feel like I haven't seen you tweeting that much.
dude, Twitter is just like, this is the thing when it
Get
comes to
in the
social
mix,
is
bro. This is
I
better
know,
than
like I'm just
Instagram.
like
I've been
I
telling
just
you this.
I love making content itself, like videos. That's my problem is
Post
in
that
like
shit on Twitter. I
I
post
know
on
I can
Twitter.
post on Twitter. I
I
know I
post all
need
my
to.
shit on
Honestly,
Twitter.
I have no excuse. That and even TikTok too. Like people are like,
Well,
why do
I
you have
just
to
think
repost your stuff to TikTok?
you explain complicated things in an easy way, and that's a good like person for Twitter because you can say
Yeah.
what you want to say in a concise, shareable, clickable thing, right? So like
Hmm.
and then dude, once you're active on there, like now that I've been more active the last year or two, it's like constant engagement, right? Like I'll tweet
Hmm.
some sports stuff or politics stuff or whatever. Even this morning, who's trading today? And you'll get people just starting to talk to you. So it'll really start to bring a lot of attention to your page. And I think like that's a whole untapped market of serious people, bro. I think my quality of person I'm talking to on Twitter is better than Instagram.
You know what's really interesting actually is I probably have this weird like personal dilemma with it because my demographic on Instagram versus Twitter is so different because Instagram's a lot of like developing traders, first year, second year, maybe kind of like getting into it.
Yep.
Twitter, because of Traders for a Cause,
You're with
because of
all
these
the
big
big
things,
guys. You're
I'm
with all the
like,
guys that have been
and
around
so
forever.
yeah, so I'm like, dude, like, what is my tweet gonna provide value for this guy that's an 8-figure trader that's been trading for 10 years? Like, so it's probably this
It's a
like
good thought.
almost like
It's
an
good
imposter
self-awareness.
syndrome type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
But
it's like
you know what
that's
I'm gonna
probably
say.
why I
Push
don't.
through that. Because what if he
I
favorites it?
know.
He favorites it. It then shows up on that guy's like the bigger guy's spot. Like Lance favorites your shit.
Yeah,
Lance gives you a
yeah,
retweet. All of
yeah,
his people see it. That's huge for you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, for sure, for sure. You're not
Yeah.
wrong. It's just me trying to get past that barrier. I guess I just have to do it. So yeah.
I called out Peter Brandt a little bit on our podcast we did a couple of weeks ago because I was like, Peter's gonna he's got to be careful. He's going to croak over because he's so old, tweeting so hard about all these prop firms and how much he hates them. And I put that video, I clipped it and I put it on Twitter and he favored it and laughed at it and he got the joke. Like he knew I was just being funny. So it's like,
Yeah,
no, you never know who you can like
you
rub
never
shoulders with
know.
just
Yeah,
from the Twitter stuff. Cause I think people
yeah,
like, I would never engage with Peter Brand on Instagram. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
So like you're
yeah,
already
for
around the
sure.
big guys, bro. And then that could lead to collabs too.
Hmm.
You never know.
Yeah,
Get them on some of your good videos, some of your
yeah,
TikToks.
yeah, for sure. Exactly.
So nice, bro. That's good. Good update on everything. I think we covered a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
So you
dude,
got it
it was
coming
good
up for the
stuff.
rest of the year. What are you doing for Thanksgiving, for Christmas? You got anything planned with the business?
No, pretty mellow so far. I'll probably do like a Black Friday sale, obviously, for the business. Just keep pushing content. Like that's like my goal. I want to sprint to
Are
20K
you
on
going to be wearing a
Instagram.
Santa outfit soon for some Santa content?
Oh, I should do like some sort of deadlift thing in a Santa suit or something
A
like that.
hundred percent.
I do have a, powerlifting competition coming up in January, so I
Nice.
signed up for that. So
In
I'll be kind of
California?
like, yeah, in California. It's at the LA Fit
Nice.
Expo. So
Nice.
I'll be like kind of deep in the prep for that. A majority of the holidays, but it's good, dude. Like honestly, as I just keep like growing and developing too, like I just don't want to like drink as much or like party as much. And like I just notice that I'm like, I like what's really important in my life. I'm like, well, lifting and trading and like being a good entrepreneur, personal development, and all those old habits as I grow just don't align with me much anymore. So it's
No,
like I just can't, I just really trying to, it's just like a period of growth for me right now, more than
that's
anything,
good.
honestly. And so that's kind of all it's kind of boring in that sense, but boring is good for me. I like it. I just want to get strong as fuck, make money, grow,
Says the
and
guy
become.
that literally started the podcast with I deadlifted 675 pounds or 625 pounds, whatever you said. Said I still want to get strong. What do you have a goal? Are you trying to lift 800 pounds? Like, are you going to just go till the spine snaps? Is that what we're trying to do?
My life goal is an 800-pound deadlift for sure. Like in the powerlifting space,
That is
squat.
crazy.
Yeah, squat. I want to squat like eventually like 700, but I'm like if I could push in like the early 600s at this next competition. I'm really close to a 405 bench right now, so I'm like that's like
Bro.
my big one. I'm like, oh, if I can hit 4 plates, it's huge. So, yeah, man, it just can just that's a huge thing of mine. It's just I love lifting and a huge part
Well,
of
the
my day. So,
competitive nature of that, plus then the competitive nature of like you versus yourself with trading, it keeps you pretty satisfied.
oh
Are
yeah,
you
dude,
writing
it's a
workouts for people?
I used to do that back in the day. I
Yeah.
don't really do it anymore. Yeah, and I always
Ain't
like
no
kind of
money
wonder.
in
I'm like,
that.
I'm like, is there a side thing? I mean, it depends on the demographic. I'm like, dude, I
It's
could
true.
probably totally like, I could probably train
Beverly
traders if I
Hills
wanted
housewives,
to.
they probably
Yeah,
have the money. Aspiring traders are probably just a bunch of like chubby dudes that like don't have the money to pay you for the workout. You should just tell them to go
yeah,
get on the treadmill at Crunch Fitness and start there.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, but maybe some of like the eight-figure traders on Twitter. I'm like, oh, I could write your workouts.
There you go. Right,
So
right, right.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'll be back in LA. That's what I was gonna say. In June, I think.
Okay.
June or yeah, for another conference. So if you're still there in June, we'll have to meet up,
Okay.
hang, do another podcast, maybe in person. That'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be sick. Rent a little studio or something like that. That'd be cool.
100%. Yeah, I mean, LA
Absolutely.
was okay when I was there for the first time, bro. It was kind of I was at the athletic club downtown, so I was in like the
Uh,
shit of it by Skid Row. Like it's pretty bad,
oh,
but I'm sure there's
LA
beautiful
fucking sucks.
right.
LA's awful.
It's
I'm
just
just like it's just too crowded and like it's not me. Like you gotta come to Orange County where I'm at closer to the beach. It's beautiful down here, dude. It's
yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's on the list. San Diego, California is a sixth state. So, and it's
mhm.
with the politics now, it'll hopefully shift a little bit more towards the center, a little away from the left. And maybe if they didn't have as high of taxes, they could attract some serious entrepreneurs like myself and get Elon back. But
It's
yeah,
true. Very
yeah.
true.
Cool. All right. Well, good, bro. Good chatting with you. I appreciate you so much
Yeah.
for hopping in and doing this. I think we covered a lot. I'll make sure we've got everything linked down below for you. But I think
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in it for now. Part 2 in the books. Thanks, bro.
Awesome, bro. Yeah, good stuff. Loved it.
I appreciate you. So everybody, thanks for staying all
Yep.
the way through. If you did, make sure you're subscribed. I'll put a link also to part 1 with Tanner down below if you didn't see that. So now you can see both. And then, of course, all his socials will be linked down below. But until next time, everybody, thank you very much. Have a good day.